Hey.
It has been a long time to get this started, but we're in front of each other.
Who knew that recording live, like with each other, would be more complicated than recording separately with Zoom?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you realize this, but we actually started recording this at the perfect time because it's going to be like an anniversary for the Amityville Murders coming up. Did you notice that?
Oh yeah, I did. I read it and then I didn't like process it in my brain.
Didn't,
but
like,
yeah,
register.
yeah.
I was looking at that last night and I was like, oh, that kind of worked out in a morbid way.
Yeah. So.
Oh, hey, welcome to our podcast.
Oh,
this
yeah.
is Haunted or Hoax.
Yes, it's Haunted or Hoax, and I'm Kristen.
And I am Jennifer.
And this is the second episode. Quick thank you to everyone who listened to the first episode. I think I have looked at our statistics more than I've looked at any statistics ever. I was so excited. And a good few people have listened, from family and friends to some new friends that we don't know yet.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Thanks for listening in. Hope it keeps you entertained.
Yeah.
For those of you who are new, just to give you a quick rundown of what we do, we find ghost stories or haunting stories, and Kristen looks through the paranormal information and kind of gives that aspect of it. And then I'll go in and find the actual factual details and compare the stories and see if they actually match up and figure out if things could actually be haunted or if it's just a big fat lie.
So this episode and the next week episode, we're going to be covering a huge case that has a lot of speculation. And it's called Amityville. The Amityville Horror Haunted House. You've probably all heard of it, except for my husband. My husband has never heard of this, so
but we'll tell you all about it, and Zach, you'll learn all about it too.
Yes, Zach specifically. We're talking to you from the podcast Beyond.
We made this episode just for you.
Yeah.
So do you want to go first today?
Yes. So if you listened to our last episode, it was kind of I kind of gave all the rumors, and then Jennifer came in with her badass history research skills and kind of sussed everything out. It's going to pretty much go the same way this time. I think that we're going to be overlapping a little bit. It's going to be a little bit more of us kind of figuring things out together. There's a lot, though, and we're going to start out with the murder that happened in the Amityville house at first with the Defeo family. So I guess we're going to get into it.
Let's do it.
Perfect. November 13th, 1974, around 3:15 in the morning, Ronald Defeo Jr., a.k.a. Butch, which is the worst nickname anybody's ever had. I hate that nickname. I don't know why.
Why do you hate it so bad?
I don't know. It just doesn't sound great. Butch. It's very hard on the ears, and, you know, if
It's supposed to be like a big, tough Italian nickname.
I don't like it. I mean, if your nickname is Butch, that's fine. I just don't like it.
Well, we just lost like 5 listeners.
Yes. All the Butches are like going to make a hate website for us now. But he went around the house around 3:15 a.m. in Amityville, Long Island, took a shotgun, and murdered his entire family, which included his father, Ronald Sr., his mother, Louise, 18-year-old Dawn, 9-year-old John Matthew, 13-year-old Allison, and 12-year-old Mark. After he went and killed his whole entire family, he showered as if in a trance, put on his work boots, and went to work. Then at around 6:30 p.m., he showed up at a bar saying, "I think my parents have been shot." The bar patrons went with him, and they discovered the Defeo family murdered. And then the story goes that he was possessed by demons. He heard voices. He heard demons compelling him to kill his whole family, and he couldn't stop it. He said that once it started, it was like somebody else was in control, and he couldn't stop the murders even if he wanted to. And that's kind of where the whole Amityville horror kind of gets set up, is this young man murdering and annihilating his whole entire family at the behest of the devil.
Well, that did definitely happen. The murders did happen. I have the backstory to the murders as well as the details of the murders. And just as a listener advisory, it does get a little graphic. So
yeah, I know I have some tender heart moms that are friends that are wanting to support me in this podcast, but it might be a little heavy for you guys to listen to.
Listener discretion. You know, if it gets a little too heavy, we understand, because
take a break.
It's a pretty, I mean, the actual story is really rough to listen to. So I'll start at the beginning, and then I know that you found some history yourself, so feel free to pitch in.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I have a good amount of notes. Just to start at the very beginning, Ronald Defeo Sr., which I'll refer to him as Ronald. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry, but I have Junior in here as Butch throughout the entire thing.
That's fine. We'll just call him Butch. I mean, it's what he deserves, but it fits him as a nickname.
It's
a horrible person for a horrible nickname.
I agree with that. So Ronald Defeo Sr. purchased the house 112 Ocean Avenue many, many years after working hard in his father-in-law's Brooklyn Buick dealership. The home had 2 stories, an attic, and a finished basement, and also a boathouse on Amityville River. And if you look in the neighborhood, it's a super, nice, prestigious, super ritzy area.
Yeah, and it looked like a really nice house, which I read some things that were like rumors that the reason why they were able to purchase that house and it was so, uncommon for like a Brooklyn car dealership was because it had like mob ties, but I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe you found something in your...
I'll get to that, and I'll let you kind of decide whether that makes sense or not. But regardless, they moved in. The house was perfect for him, his wife, and their 5 kids. Lots of room. They put a sign in the front yard that read High Hopes when they moved in.
Which is just so...
On
just
the nose.
given... Just maybe lower your hopes. Moderate hopes for this was probably the better.
Mid-range hopes.
Yes.
So Ronald Sr. was said to be a man with a pretty bad temper, actually. He was known for arguing with him and his wife, and it sometimes getting physical. He was also very authoritative over his children. Unfortunately, Butch ended up getting the brunt of that.
Which makes sense. He's the oldest. Kind of maybe not just... because he's the oldest and the dad's going to pick on him the longest, but maybe he was kind of protecting his siblings at one point.
I listened to My Favorite Murder, their episode on this, and on that episode they mentioned that Butch did get a head injury, but I couldn't find that anywhere. But we do know the correlation between head injuries and
violence.
Yes.
And later in life, yeah.
Right. So I wasn't able to confirm that anywhere, though, and I didn't find that on any of my sources that I looked at either, so... Yeah,
I think that people kind of just assume that if you're going to be... there's domestic violence or abuse in the home, there must have been some sort of injury.
Yeah, some sort of trauma going on.
Yeah.
So he being Butch, was also frequently bullied at school. He was a little overweight as a kid and picked on pretty frequently. But his dad was a big stickler for Butch standing up for himself everywhere but at home. So he would get on to Butch for being bullied at school and then bully him when he got home from school.
Which I feel like is counterproductive.
Isn't it, though?
Like, okay, go ahead and stand up to your bullies, but I'm your biggest bully and you can't stand up to me.
Don't stand up to me.
Right.
As Butch got older, his temperament also grew to match his father's, and he got bigger. So the fights actually turned physical, and they argued very frequently. So even though Ronald Sr. didn't have the most healthy mentality of his own, he was able to pick up on his son having really irregular fluctuations in his temperament. Right. And he and Louise, which is Ronald Sr.'s wife, arranged for Butch to see a psychiatrist. Oh. That didn't go anywhere. Because Butch was not interested in getting any support from the therapist. He became very sarcastic and standoffish to her.
Right. I feel like you have to choose to go to therapy and get help. You can't just force somebody into it.
Right.
But it is interesting. That's I feel like that's very progressive for this time frame around 1974. I don't feel like a lot of people sought out psychiatric help.
Yeah.
For their kids, they just kind of told them to toughen up and.
Well, child psychology didn't really become a thing until the late 80s because kids were seen as really resilient and it's a phase, they'll grow out of it. So the fact that they were picking up on him having really bad, mood swings,
right,
that must have been bad.
Right, except for, like, I guess Ronald Sr. never, like, took time to be like, is it me? Am I the drama?
No.
No, he didn't blame himself at all. He was like, man, there's something really messed up about this kid, but what could it be?
I'm not the drama. Since therapy didn't work out and, corporal punishment at the home didn't work out, they did the only thing that made sense, and they started giving him whatever he wanted and gave him money and things that, were ridiculously expensive.
Yes, that's the way to go. Just shower them with gifts when they're being assholes.
You are acting absolutely horrible, so I'm going to give you a $14,000 speedboat.
Oh my gosh.
At the age of 14 years old.
Who needs a boat? I mean, I guess because they had the boathouse and everything, they could make use, but who needs a boat? Do you guys need a boat? Nobody needs a boat. Except for fishermen.
My 15-year-old nephew can use my kayak anytime he wants to.
Right.
However, he does not need a $14,000 boat.
No.
So, at the age of 17, Butch was kicked out of the Catholic school he was attending. He had begun using serious drugs like heroin, and his violent behavior was becoming even more frequent. Yeah. So, he pointed a loaded gun at one of his friends during a hunting party, which maybe I'm just like from the 90s, but a hunting party does not sound like a good time to me.
I would never go on a hunting party.
I've seen lots of movies where they don't end up good.
Yeah.
So he pointed a loaded gun at one of his friends, like in the face. He watched his friend's expression drop. Apparently his friend like got completely white.
Yeah.
And left.
Oh, yes. If you're going to stay after that,
That is not a good choice.
You are more brave or something than I am, because if somebody even like flashed a gun it doesn't even have to be at my face. Just like anywhere near the vicinity of me.
Well, you don't point a loaded gun at anybody.
Right. Or unloaded. Just don't point guns at people.
Don't point guns. So they ran into their friend later on in that evening, and Butch asked him why he left so soon.
Oh, I don't know, Butch. Maybe it's because you almost shot me in the face.
You threatened my life.
Right.
So at the age of 18, Butch was given a job at his grandfather's Buick dealership. By Butch's own account, it was a super easy job, and he got paid whether he came to work or not, which seems like now. Like, you don't want to show up for your job? All right, well, we'll see you whenever you feel like showing up, and you'll still have your job.
Yeah, I mean, that's just crazy to me. You think about what happened, or like what's going to happen, and then you think about his life. Obviously, like having child abuse and growing up in that kind of sort of like violent household is going to affect you. But he really was given pretty much everything, and it wasn't like, as far as I saw, it wasn't like they were threatening to cut him off or anything.
No, not at all. Quite the opposite. He used the money that he got from his very easy job to buy drugs and alcohol, and he did end up developing a bad heroin problem.
And LSD, right? I saw LSD as
yes.
well. So.
Yes. Welcome to the 70s. So one evening, a fight broke out between Mr. and Mrs. Defeo. Butch grabbed a 12-gauge shotgun from his room because he turned into quite a arms collector. So he grabbed a shotgun from his room, loaded a shell into the chamber, and came downstairs. He pointed the barrel of the gun at his father's face, screaming at him. I pulled out the expletives, but it was not a friendly conversation, obviously, if you're going to point a gun at somebody else's face, and pulled the trigger. But the gun misfired.
Oh my gosh.
So I feel like that was just really bad foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And maybe the police should have been called at that point.
Right. Or maybe, I don't know, take away his guns, or, I don't know, kick him out. I don't know. If you cheated death once with your son aiming a gun and pulling the trigger.
Right.
And then it was just like, okay, whatever. I mean,
what was that movie called? Final Destination.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very Final Destination.
Ugh.
Okay.
So, 2 weeks before the murders, Butch was sent on an errand to deposit $1,800 in cash and $20,000 in checks to the bank.
Did he do it?
No, he did not.
Oh, no.
He was robbed.
Oh, he was robbed.
He was robbed on the way to the bank.
Oh, and this He's not a small fry, right? He wasn't able to.
No, his nickname is Butch.
I know, right? I mean, just like kind of surprising that a heroin addict that's been trusted to take all these checks and this cash to the bank somehow just got
right.
robbed.
Like, who gave him that job and thought that it was a good idea?
Yeah, his dad, who almost got shot. He was like, you know what? I'm gonna give you more responsibility,
actually,
and privilege.
So, turns out that it was literally just a coworker that told him to go do that. His dad got super pissed that the coworker like gave him that responsibility.
Well, the coworker was like, he hangs around here for 8 hours a day.
He needs to do something.
And I am running around here doing the cleaning and the selling the cars and the getting the keys, and I'm washing the cars.
And that bank teller is always so sassy to me.
Right. And she won't give me her number, so I'm going to play it cool and see if she misses me. So I'm going to send to Butch instead.
Well, Butch didn't make it to the bank. He was robbed by an acquaintance. Which he later split the money with.
Oh, okay. So it was like...
It was an inside job.
Oh my God. So it was like they met on the street and he was like, oh, no, don't rob me.
No,
He was like, give me all your money. And he's like, oh, well, I guess if you ask like that.
No, it was completely pre-planned, premeditated.
Oh,
Not
just
spoiler.
I'm just saying that I want it to be like I wanted them to like play it up.
No.
For the drama.
So he said that he was robbed.
Okay.
But he wasn't. So during the investigation, Butch was not a good actor, and he was really tense and irritable with the police and also his father. And his father started to suspect his son's involvement a little bit.
No way.
On the Friday before the murders, Butch had been asked by the police to examine some mugshots to try and figure out who robbed him.
Okay.
And he said, all right, good, sounds good. And then he canceled last minute. So when Ronald Sr. heard what Butch did, he confronted his son at work and demanded why he wasn't cooperating with the police.
Oh, man.
And there was a big verbal altercation and lots of not nice words were shared. And then Butch left in a rage, left work in a rage. And I'm pretty sure I took it out.
This is why you don't work with family.
Something like blankety blank blank blank, I'll kill you.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Which, I mean, he had already shoved a gun in his dad's face and pulled the trigger, so...
There's not a big stretch there.
No.
I would take that threat seriously.
So, this is where the details of the murders are going to be. So, if you don't want to listen to this...
This is your trigger warning.
Yes, just skip forward a couple of times. So, at 3 a.m. on November 14th, 1974... Butch was in his bedroom. He got up, grabbed a .35 caliber Marlin rifle from his closet, and went into his parents' room. He raised the rifle, pulled the trigger, and sent the first shot into his father's back. It went into his kidney and exited through his chest. He fired again, hitting the father in the back. The shot pierced the base of his spine and lodged into his neck, killing him.
Oh my gosh.
Louise had barely woken up before her son shot her as well. He shot her twice. The bullets went through her ribcage and collapsed her right lung and killed her. So then he entered his brother's rooms. They shared a room, Mark and John, and he fired one shot into each of the boys as they were on their stomachs, allegedly sleeping. Butch was later recorded saying that he stood there and watched his brother's leg twitch.
Oh my
after
God.
He shot him because one of the bullets went into the brother's spine.
Oh, he is disgusting. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that really grossed me out.
Oh my gosh.
So then once he killed his brothers, he went into his sister's room. Allison kind of moved around, looked up right as he lowered the rifle to her face and pulled the trigger. She was killed instantly, and then he turned and fired the rifle at Dawn's head and killed her as well.
I did read that when he killed Dawn, it was like the whole left side of her face was
gone. Yeah.
Which I just don't understand how I couldn't kill anybody. Let's be clear. I'm not going to killing anybody, but you do that to your little siblings.
Right.
I mean, even your mother and father, but especially little children. I mean, I think that John Matthew was 9.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's awful. That's what I have on my biography of the Defeo is 9.
So
it might have been 10, but
my list is Ronald Defeo Sr., which was 43, Louise, which was 42.
Mm.
Mark was 12. John was 7. Allison was 13. And Dawn was 18.
Mm. It might be he was 7, but I listened to My Favorite Murder and I listened to And That's Why We Drink. They both said 9, but they might be getting it from a source.
Oh, yeah, I got that from Murderpedia.
Oh, well then maybe that's the one we go with. So even worse. I mean,
no,
9 and 7.
The boys were younger for sure. I mean, even Allison was 13. Like, all of the kids were young, and I think that's where this story really bothers me, because when you hear about the Amityville Horror, you think of the ghosts, and I feel like that story really took away from the ultimate tragedy of an entire family was wiped out in a span of 15 minutes.
Yeah.
More than likely because of $20,000 in checks and however much in cash.
Right. When I was reading over just like the basic legend, like I said at the beginning, where it's like this story mainly at a glance is known for like, oh yeah, he says he was possessed by the devil and killed his whole family. When I first started looking into this, I was like, why would you kill your whole family? And that's the first time I heard about like him being investigated. I didn't see that in my research. Investigated for this so-called robbery and his part in it.
Yeah.
And I can see that as a motive, but still, your family has done everything for you so far.
Right.
So I bet even if you confess to it, they would try to their hardest to keep you out of jail.
Mm-hmm. But clearly he wasn't the most mentally stable.
Right.
So after the murders happened, Butch showered, trimmed his beard, and got dressed for work. He grabbed the evidence and the rifle, put them in a pillowcase, and got in his car, and on the way to work, he threw them in a storm drain and got to work around 6 a.m., ready to go for the day.
Right. Just casually strolled in.
To a job that he barely shows up for.
Right, and I think that I read that some people were like surprised to see him because he was never there that early.
Right. So Butch did pretty much everything but act like he just murdered his entire family that day. He went to work, and after he called home several times with no answer, he left work around noon and like was making a show like, that's really weird that they're not answering the phone, like just telling everybody that, you know, his family's ghosting him. Oh, bad term. Bad term. He called his girlfriend saying he wanted to hang out with her. He was going to be leaving work early, and so on the way over to her apartment, he stopped to chat with his friend Bobby, then took his girlfriend shopping at the mall. Then they went to Bobby's house to hang out, and all the while he was stopping occasionally to call home and try and get in touch with somebody, and like mentioning how strange it was that nobody was picking up the phone.
Which is so creepy, to call your house and know that nobody's going to pick up because all of them are dead because you killed them, and then just act like, oh, I don't know, this is so weird. It's gross. Right.
Around 6 p.m., Butch ended up at the local bar called Henry's with his friend Bobby, and he mentioned that he was going to go home and check some things out and like see what's going on. And he returned a few minutes later saying, someone shot my mother and father, which I thought was weird because he went back to the bar to tell them that his parents had been shot.
Right.
When they had a landline from the house.
Yeah, like why didn't you call the police?
And one of the guys that came to the house from the bar with him actually ended up using that phone to call 911. So it's like, why didn't you just call from your home?
Right. Because I guess, you know, he has to set up some sort of alibi? I don't know. I just don't get it. The whole sequence of events of after the murders is very bizarre to me. Not just bizarre that he went to work and acted like everything was fine or took his girlfriend, and like he made the calls and everything. It's just like going to the bar and then like making a point to tell everybody who's going home and then coming back. It's just so weird.
It was all like a big drama.
Right.
Like
but he's
put
a
on
bad
a show.
actor.
He is a bad actor. Long story, not as long as it could be. The whole town pretty much ended up at his house. Like, it was not a quiet thing because Amityville was not known for murders at that time. So a lot of people from the bar came. They discovered the family. Then they called the police. The police showed up and did a full investigation at the house, started questioning Butch, trying to figure out what was going on, you know, who could have done this. So Butch suggested to the police first thing that his family was murdered by Louis, or Louis, depending on how you pronounced it, Fellini, a notorious mafia hitman. And of course, they're Italian, so it's always the mob.
Right.
I can say that because my husband's Italian.
And I'm fake Italian, so I give you permission.
Butch said that Fellini had lived with them for a period of time, and an argument with Fellini had stemmed from an incident where Fellini criticized some of the work that Butch had done at the auto dealership.
Oh.
That's why I was saying, like, you could see if it was tied to the mob. Like, you could...
Yeah, but, I mean, did they ever look into any sort of financials at the dealership to see if there was any mob ties or anything? I just feel like, it's a convenient excuse to say that it was the mob. And, I mean, why would this big mob hitman, Fellini, care about his work at the dealership?
Exactly.
He's coming over there. Is he your manager? Is he your supervisor? No.
He doesn't like the handwriting that you used to fill out that paperwork on that Cadillac.
He doesn't like the way that you buff out, some scrapes on a car. He doesn't care. I mean, I don't...
And let's be honest, Butch wasn't at work anyway.
Yeah, that's the thing. How did he know that you even work there? You're never there except for the day after you annihilate your family. You're there at 6 a.m. ready to go.
Right.
I guess murder rejuvenated him.
He felt fresh.
Right.
He being Butch, also voluntarily confessed to being a casual user of heroin.
Just casual. I just use it once or twice a week. It's fine.
Just casual social user of heroin. And he also admitted the fact that he had set one of his father's boats on fire.
Oh my God.
So that his father could collect on an insurance claim rather than paying for the motor, which Butch had originally damaged.
Oh. Wow. Okay. God, this guy he sucks so much. I cannot stress enough how much I don't like.
I cannot wait to tell you the little tidbits of facts that I found out later.
Okay.
Shockingly, the police caught on that this all smelt suspicious.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. They did a final sweep of the house and they found a box for the .35, which ended up being the murder weapon in the long run, and also learned by questioning Butch's friend Bobby that Butch had staged the robbery for the Buick deposit.
So there is a rumor, there's a version of this story where instead of going to work, he originally went to Bobby's house and confessed and then went to work, and then Bobby kept quiet. But I think where that kind of got muddled into the rest of the actual murder story is that it must be more likely that Bobby was confessed to about the robbery, and not the murder.
Right.
I think it was two separate incidences, but they kind of meshed together when people are casually kind of looking up the story.
Yeah. So after some interrogation from the police officers, Butch finally confessed, straight up confessed to the murders, and said it all happened so fast. Once I started, I just couldn't stop. It all went so fast. And then he led them to the evidence that he disposed of in the
Storm drain.
Yeah, storm drain.
Did you almost say...
I almost said sewer.
Sewer? Oh, okay. That's the same thing. I thought you were going to... Never mind. At first, I thought you were going to say super. Like a soup.
Are you...
Sewer. It's never going to end.
Are you stuck on the soup?
I am. It will be in my brain forever, but in a good way.
I'm glad I could make you laugh so hard. No, you're right. It wasn't the storm drain. So, obviously, he was arrested. The trial started Tuesday, October 14th, 1975, which was almost a full year
later
after the murders took place. And the following claims were made during the trial. You ready?
I'm ready for the claims.
The case should be dismissed outright due to Butch being refused access to counsel prior to the confession. Which isn't true. He refused counsel.
Right.
Because he was innocent, as he put it. So he didn't need
a lawyer.
Always or a phone call. Always get a lawyer, y'all.
Don't talk to the police. I mean,
you're gonna look guilty whether you get a lawyer or not. So you just get that lawyer and make sure that...
I think that's I don't think that's a controversial thing to say for people our age, but people grandparents and everything always kind of say, cooperate, and if you haven't done anything wrong, just cooperate, but don't ever cooperate.
We've all seen
Lawyer
To
up.
Make a Murder.
Right. Don't talk to the police. Don't give them anything, which is what he should have done. Honestly, I mean, he led them to the murder weapons. That's very damning. So
The guy was an idiot.
he was guilty and a monster, and he should be in jail. But I'm just saying, it might have gone differently if he hadn't given them everything.
It all worked out how it was supposed to.
Right.
The second thing was the confession was obtained due to physical abuse by police, which was also not true. Butch was legally insane at the time of the murders. Not true. They had 2 psychiatrists examine him, and the defense psychiatrist ended up being like,
yeah, he's not crazy.
Well, he at first said that he wasn't in a sane state of mind when the murders took place, but then once he was cross-examined by the prosecutor, it was like he did all of this stuff to hide a murder.
Right.
Clearly, he was not insane. Like, he knew what he did was bad.
Right.
While he was on the stand, Butch states that I am God, and stated he killed his family in self-defense.
Self-defense of what? The devil?
They were going to kill him first.
Oh, because they were possessed?
No, because they were just going to kill him.
Oh.
Because he was God.
Because he's God. Okay.
And then, also while he was on the stand, he straight up said that he was going to kill the prosecutor. So those last 2 statements obviously were chalked up to make him look insane.
Kind of like acting insane to try to like get out of being held responsible. But he's a bad actor. Didn't we go over this? He's not winning any Emmys or Oscars. He needs to stop.
Well, spoiler alert, he was found guilty.
Right.
On Friday, November 21st, he was found guilty of 6 counts of second-degree murder. 2 weeks later, he was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison on all 6 counts.
So just after the actual 1-year anniversary.
Exactly. Later, he also tried to claim that his sister Dawn was in on the murders, that he shot her in rage after he discovered that she killed the children instead of just her parents.
Yeah, I think that like the story that I saw in my research that he gave was she was tired of her dad's abuse or something of that nature, and that's why they made up this plan to kill their parents. But then Dawn took it a step farther and killed the children as well, and he flew into a rage and killed her, which it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any, I don't.
No, I mean, if you're doing that to end your parents' abuse and then you end up killing your siblings.
The ones that you were supposedly trying to protect.
Right.
Yeah. But I do know that from research, there's a lot of people who believe this theory.
Really?
Yeah. I saw a lot of like out of all the stories, besides the most believed one that he just did this to himself to get out of something, was that the second most popular theory is Dawn was in on it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true either. Butch ended up dying in prison this year, actually, March 2021.
He was, I think he was 69.
Yeah, something like that.
Did you know that he was married?
That was one of the tidbits of information I wanted to show you. He was married 3 times.
3 times. 3 women.
Ladies, you can do better.
Yes. You don't have to marry a family annihilator who's in prison.
You can't fix him.
No, you can't. Especially from behind bars. He's never going to get out. But there's just some people who really, like, that's their thing, is getting with.
You can't fix him, and he does not want to be fixed.
He does not.
Gross.
Okay, we'll delve in on a little bit on like the weirdness of this case. Like the fact that all of the family pretty much was on their stomachs when they died. Mm-hmm. That is just a little bit stomach sleeping is one of the most common ways to sleep. That's like a lot of people sleep on their stomachs. I just think it's very odd that pretty much all of them were found like that.
Well, they did a test on the rifle as well, and you could hear it from outside the house. But no reports were made. Like, the neighbors said they didn't hear anything. And it didn't seem like anyone in the house heard anything either, because they were all found on their stomachs. But there wasn't a silencer on the gun, which I think was very strange. But honestly, if somebody points a gun at you and says, get on your stomach, and don't look at me while I kill you,
you're going to do it. I can understand that. I just find it very odd also that none of them heard if I was like a little kid and I heard like a gunshot or something within the house, I don't know, I would probably either be frozen in my bed or try to hide somewhere, especially Dawn, who's 18.
Right, but you don't expect your brother to be the one shooting the gun. Like, if he had have come in the room and said someone's in the house, go lay down. That's true.
But I mean, I feel like it takes a minute for them to walk from room to room. So like if you hear some shots and then he doesn't come in right away, maybe. I just think that it's so weird that 18-year-old Dawn and then 13-year-old Allison didn't, like, at least, because he killed them last, hear these shots and like try to hide in their closet or something, you know?
Well, those two were the ones that weren't shot in the back.
That's true. So
Allison was shot in the head and Dawn was shot like in the face.
That's true. I also thought maybe he manipulated the bodies after the fact to put them on their stomachs.
Yeah, I don't think so, though, based on the crime scene photos.
Which are very...
Don't go looking for those if you don't want to see something like that.
They're very... I can't believe that you can just find them online.
That's how I felt about those Lizzie Borden crime scene photos, man. Yeah.
Oh, don't look up those either. Those are horrific.
I should have given you forewarning before I just popped those up on the screen.
We did a dress rehearsal episode of Lizzie Borden. Maybe like for our 1-year anniversary or something, we'll post it, or if we get that far. But Jennifer brought up these pictures, and I was like, "Holy crap! These are some crime scene photos."
But you know what's wild? There was more like documented, recorded information on that case, like on that murder, than there was on this. Like, there was a full trial transcript and everything from that case, and I could not find that anywhere.
That is really wild. It's just,
everybody has to be so like secretive now.
Yeah. Well, and I think also Lizzie Borden happened in a time where there's like more people doing historical kind of research, and I feel like this is the mid 1970s. Maybe we're just not there. Maybe 10 years from now people will be like researching the 70s and 60s like they do the
or maybe
1800s.
It just got typed up on that old fax never-ending paper and got stored in a file cabinet somewhere and never got transferred.
Waiting for us to find it.
Yeah, we'll make it there eventually.
Yeah, we're gonna go to
I bet not. I bet those archivists are so sick of being asked about this case.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Is the Amityville house owned by somebody now?
It is.
Okay.
So...
Well, I mean, we'll get into episode 2. I'm gonna be giving you all the haunting bits and everything, and that was owned a year after the murders took place. But I just was wondering if somebody owns it now.
Yeah, no, somebody lives in it now. It's been sold a couple of times, but I'll get into that too.
Okay.
TBD.
I think that, just like I mentioned in our first episode, when you're living in that sort of notorious house, it must get so annoying, people coming by.
Well, that's why they changed the address.
Yeah, but you can still look it up on Zillow and Google. The internet knows all of our secrets. Nothing is sacred anymore.
It's true. I'm sure it helped a little bit, though. Google, that's also the only house that I've seen Google actually, like, blur.
Really?
Yeah. When you look it up on Google Street View, it's blurred.
Yeah, I thought that was something wrong with my computer when I looked it up. I was like, why?
No, they blurred it for privacy. The owners, one of the previous owners, also changed the front of the house to not look like an angry house. Now it looks like a less than amused house. Like, it's got straight lined windows, so it just looks very like disinterested in what's going on instead of angry with the world.
Well, you know. Okay, so this episode was a little bit of a bummer. But in episode 2, I am going to be introducing the Lutz family, which is the family that created pretty much the whole haunting of the Amityville Horror story. And then, Jennifer, what are you going to be doing that episode?
I will be telling you about all the money that the Lutz made from the Amityville Horror story.
I cannot wait. There is a lot to go into with the Lutz family and what happened to them afterwards, and just everything that came from their experiences or haunting inside of this house.
Yes.
So I'm excited for that, but we need to do a sage moment to kind of clear out the heaviness of this.
So before we do that,
story,
just as a precursor to the next episode, I would highly suggest that if you have Audible, a membership to Audible,
listen to the book.
You go on there, because the Amityville Horror book is included right now.
Right.
So you can download it into your library. It is only 6 hours. And honestly, it's a good book. I enjoyed it.
Did you?
I did.
I haven't listened to it, but I am actually going to listen to it by the time our next episode doesn't come out for you guys, but I'll be listening with you guys and have already listened to the book at this point, and by the time the next episode airs, I'll have listened to it. But I did a lot of my research just by reading
I was talking to Joe about it, and honestly, if I didn't know the backstory and just listened to the book itself, it was a very good book. Like, just the story, it's a very good horror book.
Yes, the story is compelling.
Listen to that before you listen to what we talk about after the book, so that nothing's ruined for you, is what I'm saying.
Right. If you're really attached to like listening or like reading the book on your own,
yes,
it's gonna be tons of spoilers. Our next episode, so do that first. If you don't care, then
don't worry about it. You do whatever you feel like doing.
Just read, don't read, listen, don't listen. Listen to us,
or don't,
or do.
All right. So what's your sage moment?
My sage moment is, we were talking earlier with my husband in the kitchen about the movie Dune, and of course the star of that movie is Timothy Chalamet, is how you say his last name properly, but I never say his last name properly. It comes out all wrong all the time. I say Chimalama Ding Dong. I cannot say this name properly, and it turns out that fans of Timothy have like come up with a bunch of different names for him instead of his proper name.
Tell me them.
My favorites. Okay. So one of them is Tommy Chartreuse.
Oh.
Timothée Chalamet, like a chateau.
Yeah.
Timothy Charlemagne. Timothy Champagne. Timothée Charcuterie.
Oh.
Which, you know what? If you were watching Dune and you want to make a charcuterie board, that would probably be perfect just to call it that.
You know what I love about all of this, though, is if you were to say that to anybody in passing, they would know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like M. Night Shyamalan. Like, everybody knows what I say when I say that.
Yeah, we all know it's Shyamalama Ding Dong. But, I love saying celebrities' names wrong. I feel like that's probably disrespectful, but it's so much more fun, especially when it's a hard name like his last name, to just kind of roll off the tongue.
What is his name again?
Timothy. I cannot say his last name. Timothy Chalamet. Chalamet. One day we'll get it right. And if I ever meet him, I'm going to say one of these versions by accident and just embarrass myself, but that's fine.
That'll be fine. Call him Charcuterie. It's not the first time. So you ready for mine?
Yes.
Pick a number, 1 or 2.
2.
Okay. Why do actors say break a leg?
Why?
Because every play has a cast.
Oh, that's a good one.
You hate it.
I know I don't.
I I peaked too soon. Our first episode.
No.
I told the best joke of my life. And I will never be able to recreate it.
Oh my gosh. But my dad actually sent me a text message. Because he's listened to the episode. Thank you to my mom and dad for listening to the episode, and my stepdad. But he sent me this picture today. And I'll put it on Instagram.
Oh, it is a scuba diver with a tuba.
So I love that. I'll post that to the Instagram, but he's a true fan. I don't know if he like just Googled this picture or if he made it himself. I don't know.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeffrey. But yeah, so I think that's it for this episode.
Well, y'all, thanks for listening, and continue listening, sharing, liking, subscribing. Yes. All that good stuff.
Follow our Instagram, follow our Twitter, follow our Facebook. You can get our podcast on Stitcher, Apple, Spotify, and I put it on Facebook. So if you just have none of those other things and you just have Facebook, you can play it directly from our page.
Yeah. Or if, you're already listening to it at this point. So if you know somebody who doesn't have all that stuff, just share it with them.
Yeah.
Drop a link. And we'll
see you next week, and I will see Jennifer in a few minutes because we're going to record the second episode now.
It'll all be fine.
It'll be fine.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.